Hi everyone, welcome back to Plan V Works. Today we're going to create a pop-up Christmas card. Like I said, it's time to get back into holiday season and we're going to create this really cute pop-up. It's a little complicated to create. It's got a lot of steps, but once we're done with it, you're going to love how it'll turn out as I did. So let's begin with our tools here. We've got our card base. As you can see, this is a landscape cut. This is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And this is wide, as you can see, so plenty of space for our images. We have our inner card base that's slightly smaller. It's 4 1/8 by 5 1/4. If you can see, there's a small gap all around it, and that's all you need to know about the sizing. As for the panel, it's going to be our usual size of 4 by 5 1/4, just to fit inside the card base. We're going to use the Simon Says Stamp exclusive Christmas train from Art Impressions. This is tiny and very detailed, and it looks intimidating, but got really great results. We're also going to use our Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink, some water to create our snowy scene, our blending brush tool, and any coloring tool that you prefer, as long as you're comfortable with it, because there's going to be a lot of coloring and a lot of tiny details that you need to do. We're also going to need our black stamp, obviously, to stamp all of our images. So let's begin by measuring the images that this stamp will generate. So I am measuring the sizes of the elves here in the train, and I'm just keeping in mind how big I need my pop-up area should be. So what I'm trying to do here is just marking 1/2 inch from one end and 1/2 inch from the other end. And that is going to be 1/2 inch from below the line and 1/2 inch from above the line. And by the line, I mean the fold. So as you can see, the fold here will be right in the middle, and 1/2 inch above that fold is a line, and 1/2 inch below that fold is another line. And then obviously we're just creating a rectangle here, as you can see. And what we will do is just make sure that that fold is nice and secure, and we're just going to erase some of the extra markings that we have here. And what we're going to do is grab our scissors and just cut the sides of that rectangle, just like that. And the next thing we do is just grab our ruler here and just try to fold that. And the reason why I'm using a ruler here is because I have a thick cardstock, and you're going to need help in folding that. Just make sure that the edges of your cardstock is still aligned, because sometimes when you fold, one section or the top section is a little overlapping, and you want to make sure that it perfectly folds no matter which direction you put it, so later on you have a chance to decide which side of the inner cardstock you're going to want to put the images on. So I'm just erasing all the pencil marks here, and you can see that it was a very simple cut, and I just need to make sure that you understand how the pop-up area of the inner card works. And just like that, you have your inner card portion, and you can see that there is a gap right there in the back, and that's how you know that you've done the pop-up, because it's on the inner portion of the card. So the next thing we're going to do is stamp our images, and you can see here that I am lining up my stamp images with a little gap or a little space in between each one, because after we stamp and color these images, we are going to use our die cuts to cut them one by one. And the beauty of this set is it comes with its own corresponding die cuts. I apologize for that shake. That is from my phone holder. It's just horrible. So here we are with our stamped images, as you can see. The next step would be the most challenging part for most people, and that is coloring in the images. And I understand what that means, because these are such small images, as you can see. But the great thing about that is once it comes out, you can see all the beautiful colors, and they are just so adorably cute. And so instead of the traditional red and greens, I am using first and foremost my gold pen here. Now this is not, like a very expensive brand. I actually just got this for like $1 for 4 colors. This was a long time ago, like 4 years ago, and it still works to this day. So if I lift this card up and put it where the light can touch it, you will see that it has a little bit of shine. So here I'm putting in the silver marker on some of the inside of the wheels, and I'm just coloring in the rest of the image with my Copics, with my Ohuhu. I'm just using a lot of different coloring tools here because that is what makes crafting so much fun. You can experiment and you can use and whatever tools you got, and whatever gives out the best result, whatever you're most comfortable in or you have fun with, then that's what you use. And here I am just blending in the colors little by little, my dark Copic marker and my lighter one, and just using the royal blue and reds here instead of the traditional green and red, because I actually saw a train with that color at one point in my life and I really enjoyed it. So here we are with all the images colored, and I am definitely going to add a few more elves later on, but this is how it looks like. And after we run it through our die cut machine, all these little pieces are conveniently cut into shape, and that's the beauty of it. You have to choose the stamps that need these corresponding dies, because if I cut these one by one, it's going to take forever. But now, because this set comes with its own special die set, it's so much easier to work with. Now the next thing you want to do is measure all of your little images together. As you can see here, I'm just looking how many of these little elves I need, or more of these that I need, so I can create my scene. I am planning out where things will go, or all the other elements would be. And I'm doing the same thing for the front of the card. I'm checking out what other things or elements I need to make. And at this point, I know that I need to make my snowy scene. So I'm using my Faded Jeans Distress Oxide ink on this project to create that blue night snowy image. And just below it, I plan to put some snowy hills as well, but I don't have any of those dies that create the hills, so I'm just cutting it out. The shape of it, I'm just cutting it out from a piece of cardstock. And that's the thing, I don't want to buy things or dies or other tools that I know I can create by myself. Obviously, a stitched one would be better, but at this point, I don't mind at all because there's so much going on in my card that just having a snowy hill would be just fine. And I'm trying to see how I will put all of this together, just, not putting any adhesive on anything at all until I decide what I really want the scene to look like. And that's the great thing you can do while you're doing your cards, is just plan everything out until it feels perfect. So I decided to create that hill the other way around, and I decided that the stark white is just too much to see and snow really doesn't look like that. So I decided to put just a little bit of blending there on the top, on the edges, just to make it look a little bit more realistic and put a little bit of dimension. And so in my mind, this is tentatively how it's going to look, but it feels a little bit lacking. So I decided to create a railroad track just below that train wheels. Now we're going to create that later on. But for now, I want to finish this snowy scene. And what you see me doing here is just sprinkle some water on top of the image. And some people prefer to use white paint to do this, but since I'm using a Distress Oxide ink, I can use water and create that kind of effect, because that's how distress ink or Distress Oxide ink reacts. And you can see that I will do that once again on our inner card base here. But before I do that, I make sure that the snowy parts are covered with tape here, so you can see. And that is just above the fold, the line just above the fold, because I want to keep that white. and the rest of the card, the top portion of the card, snowy, the snowy part of the scene. And so again, I am just covering it and blending in our Distress Oxide ink, and I'm taking off that tape to show that the rest of the card is still white. And again, look at this. This is just water. And in fact, there is a specific spray that you can use to do this. It's like random sprinkles of water, but I can do it with my fingers. And obviously you can do it with a brush as well to create the kind of sprinkles that you like or the effect that you like. But look at that snowy effect on the Distress Oxide scene. It's just so nice and cute. Like, how is that possible, right? Like, it's, how does that even happen? So the next thing I'm doing here is just creating, again, a snowy hill scene. But as you can see, there is a gap in the middle of that scene that corresponds to the area where the pop-up comes in and out. And you want to make sure that this gap fits perfectly into that pop-up portion, because if that interferes with how the pop-up goes in and out, your card will have a hard time opening and closing. So you want to make sure that that is aligned and perfectly at the same spot where the pop-up is. Now I am adding in again, or blending in some of the Distress Oxide ink on the edges of our snowy hill, just to make sure that it creates a little bit of dimension and again a little bit more realistic to look at. And I like how this turned out. This was a great idea. I didn't think about this the first time, but then I realized, yeah, the edges of the snow or the snowy hill needs a little bit of something, and that's what it was. So just again making sure that everything is aligned here before I put any kind of adhesive behind it. And for this snowy hill, I'm just going to use flat adhesive. We don't want any other extra dimension on the inside because this is already a pop-up. So as you can see there, I'm just lining up. You can use glue here as well. And the reason I'm using glue on the second one is so I can align it perfectly in case that it needs a little bit of wiggle room to adjust it. There. So now that our snowy hill is stuck to the card base, you can see that the pop-up still opens up perfectly well, and that's the important bit because we are going to put our little elves on that portion, on that area. And I'm just trimming off some excesses here on the side, just making sure that our card is still aligned from the edges and making sure that the fold is still tight and secure and it, you know, have no problems opening and closing the card. Now still just making sure that all my elves is a spot on this and just slowly putting them in one by one. And look how cute they're starting to look. Look at that. I mean, isn't that adorable? I just love how this card turned out. Like, I can just look at them all day. Like, they're having so much fun. And you can see, like, as I mentioned earlier, that we are creating a railroad track here, or a train track. And this is kind of like a pain to do, but I needed to do it because, well, trains actually run on tracks. So I wanted to make that scene clear. And so that's what we're doing here. I'm just creating a track here. And it's nothing special. It's just pieces of strips of cardstock. You can actually use plain colored cardstock on this and just use your inks to color them in, but since I have these scrap pieces, I just decided to create them from my cardstock. So just measuring in and trying to make sure that it is all within the right ratio or sizes, making sure that I have enough of these little bits, just creating them. As you can see, I'm not measuring anything at all, I'm just eyeballing most of this. So when you look at it, like, there's so much going on and there's so much to do, but at the end of it, it just makes everything complete. And that's what makes these handmade cards so special, because you can, you know, you have to do everything by yourself, and you get a little bit of help from the tools, from the coloring, but the rest of it is all you. And just like that, I have my little railroad track here headed to the North Pole or coming from the North Pole to complete my card. And I like how it turned out. I think it's great that that addition was made. And I think it served the purpose of just creating all of those little bits just to have that railroad track there. Now this is where I create an extra bit of dimension. That's the train. I put some foam tape behind it to create that dimension because I feel that it should be a little bit above the snowy hill and everything else that's going on in the back there. Now I'm just again adding in all the little elves, all the little elements that make this such a fun card to look at. And again, you can see that snowy scene in the back. It's beautiful. I love it. So now for the inside of our card, you can tell that I've added more elves here and it looks so much more fun. I always have this notion in my mind that elves come in packs of like, I don't know, 200. But obviously I don't have 200, but I have more elves than planned and that just turned out so well for me. Now you can see that I'm just adding in some glue into the back of our inner card base here and sticking it to our original card base interior. And you can see that I'm just trying to make sure that the fold is aligned on both cards because that is the important part in creating all of these pop-ups, that all the folds align because you don't want them to close weird or to open weird in any way. Now, it looks like this might be the final step, but it actually isn't. But it looks great already, and you can tell that it's looking so good. But the last thing we need to do is add up our sentiment. And for this one, I am putting in Sending an Abundance of Joy, and that is from the October 2021 Hero Arts kit. And that is still my favorite one to pull out. And I always end up using that when it comes to all of these Christmas sentiments and some of the Christmas elements that come in my card these days. So I'm just putting in my embossing powder there and to match my embossing ink, and look at that. Isn't that pretty? It matches the gold that I used on the train, and I'm doing the same thing inside my card, except that I just used that word Merry Christmas and made it into an arch like that. Now, once you're satisfied and happy with your embossing powder there, the next thing you do is just set it up. You heat set it and you get this lovely gold image. Isn't that awesome? That is so cool. I love that part every single time. It just creates this perfect finish. And just like that, I am putting in my adhesive on the back of my front card panel. And we have our beautiful pop-up. And it just brings a smile to my face every time I see all of these little guys. Look at that. Merry Christmas from all of us. Obviously, it's going to be like a bunch of little elves, and it's so great to look at. It's so much fun. And this is perfect if you are a big family or a bunch of friends sending the same thing to other people. It's just so much fun. And I hope you guys enjoy this. You can use any other stamps or dies that you have. So make sure that you try this card, and we'll see you again next time at Plan V Works. Please like and subscribe for more affordable crafting, resourceful hacks, and easy techniques. Have a great day, everyone.